Good afternoon. I am Casey Potts, the chair of the Dover-Sherborn Athletic Hall of Fame Committee, and this is the third Hall of Fame induction ceremony. If this is your first time here at Richard J. Wakely Memorial Gymnasium, welcome. If you haven't been here for a while but the place is familiar, welcome back. While we are here to celebrate the outstanding achievements of individuals and teams from the past, the fact that athletic excellence is part of the Dover-Sherborn tradition is evident in the performance of current DS student athletes and teams. And to share some of those recent successes, I would like to introduce Dover-Sherborn Athletic Director, Emily Sullivan. Emily?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for letting me talk at such a special night. I feel very fortunate to be with such a great group of people that embody such a great history of what this school is all about. As a current athletic director, I can tell you how important it is for our student athletes, myself, our coaches, our staff, our administration, to really understand the importance of the history of DS athletics. In order for us to strive for greatness in the future, we have to understand the greatness and the success and the struggles that the past and the history has all gone through. And so I think it's extremely vital for our culture to be really surrounded by this great history and connect the two together in order for us to be able to move forward and continue with success. One quick story that I can give you guys of how this is an example in athletics today is our field hockey team, as I'm sure you all know, won the state championship this year, which is really exciting. Coach Johnson's over there and led them to a great season. The parents of that team actually were able to get the 1974 team picture of those ladies that won their version of the state title. I think it was a South sectional title, was the last game that they actually played, but they were the best team in the state. And it was so important for our girls to be able to see that picture. I think they saw it right before the state semifinal game when they played Linfield. And by looking at that picture, they were really able to see the history of female athletics and how far it's come, not just from the uniforms that those women were wearing, but the struggles that they've gone through and to fight for the rights that they want and how far it's come for them today, I think really gave them a sense of pride to play in those next two games, which they won, to bring home that state championship so much longer ago. It gave them a lot to really work towards, and I just think that's a great example of how history meets present and has really helped our team bring home that state championship this year. And I just think that's a really cool way that our team, they loved seeing that picture. It was a huge part of their story, their tournament story. And it was really great that those parents were able to dig up that picture and able to show the team, because I think it meant a great deal to them to be able to see that picture. So that was one example of how past can meet the future and really shape us into who we are today. I thank you guys all for being here today. It's a great honor to be the athletic director here. Dover-Sherborn is a really special place, and I've already started to fall in love with everything that it embodies. Our student athletes are constantly working towards striving in the classroom as well as on the athletic fields and in the theater department and the music programs that we have here. It's just a really wonderful place, and I'm extremely blessed to be here, and I feel really fortunate to speak to you guys tonight. I have quite a few accomplishments from the last year since you guys met last, so I'm going to read them, and I apologize because I don't want to miss any. So in the last year since you guys met, we've won quite a few state titles, which is really exciting. First was boys basketball, won the 2019 D3 state championship, and Coach Grady's here tonight. Boys lacrosse won the 2019 D3 state championship. The girls field hockey team won the 2019 D2 state championship. Hoop Cooper Evans, who I believe is here tonight serving the drinks back there, was our Division III golf state champion individually. Boys indoor track won the 2020 Division V state relay championship. Avi Yamblonsky, a sophomore here, became a 2020 D2 two-time state champion in the 100-yard backstroke and the 50-yard freestyle. And most recently, Lucas Bodkins, a senior here, won the 2020 Nordic individual state race. So in addition to those state titles, girls soccer won the South Sectional this year, which was a really fun ride to see them go on. We've won many TBL titles in boys lacrosse, boys tennis, girls tennis, boys track and field, boys cross country, girls soccer, field hockey, golf, and boys indoor track and field most recently. DS has also had 4 Boston Globe All-Scholastics with all seniors. One was here tonight in our jazz band, Oliver Freed, for cross country. A senior field hockey, Peyton Ahola. A senior girls soccer player, Karis Balmer. And our senior golfer, Cooper Evans. All 4 of these seniors are continuing on to play college athletics as well, and we're really excited for them in that venture of life that they're about to go on. We also had one DS student athlete named an All-American. She's only a sophomore, Ava Yamblonsky, on our swim team. And there's Oliver Freed, one of our Boston All-Scholastics that we mentioned earlier. I could keep going. We've won many Coach of the Year awards. We've won many sportsmanship awards in the last year. I don't want to keep you here all night. One that I did want to mention to you guys, because she's such an important part of this night. She's run a lot. She's on the Hall of Fame committee. She's a DS alum. She's a DS teacher. She won the Assistant Coaches Award of the Year for the swim team as Carly Eccles. So as you guys can see, the tradition of excellence that DS embodies continues throughout this school and our student athletes today, and that has started with all the alumni in many years back. And we appreciate the history so much, and we hope to continue to make you guys proud in the future. And thank you so much for letting me be a part of this night, and thank you to the Hall of Fame board for running such a great night. And I hope you guys have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Next, we will hear from our superintendent, class of 1980, Dr. Andrew Keel. Dr. Keel?
Now, I know sometimes people hear that and they're like, that's got to be a typo. That can't possibly be true. It's great to be here with you tonight. I want to thank KC and the selection committee for the many hours that they put into this process, and all of the people behind the scenes who make this possible for us to celebrate. And our inductees, congratulations to all of you. Dover-Sherborn is an incredibly successful school system. But as I was just speaking with Rick Brady, our basketball coach, you look at the banners in just the past 10 years, the amount of success is just off the charts. And that is a testament to the commitment of the folks in our athletic department. Our AD, Emily Sullivan, I'm so glad that she's chosen to join us. She did a great job, and thank you, Emily, for everything you've done so far. We look forward to many more years with you. This evening, I know that we will recognize some very important people. But when I think about myself as a superintendent, I'll ask myself frequently, how did I get here? And how did this happen? And it really was the people behind the scenes. Tom Marlborough will be honored this evening as part of the football team. Jim Lorenzen this evening, the AD for many years, and my PE teacher. There are people in this room whose shoulders I stand on. And, they shaped me in ways that I didn't realize as a kid. And I'm truly grateful for that. We never know who is going to end up where. But the people, and many of these people in this room had such a profound impact on me. And when I think of Tom Marlborough, even mentioning his name, my hands get sweaty. Because he's a legend here. And I'll tell you, I was thinking about, how do you capture who Tom Marlborough is? And if you've seen The Lion King, the movie, there's a scene in there where the hyenas are talking about Mufasa, the Lion King, and one of the hyenas says, say that name again, Mufasa, Mufasa, Mufasa. It's kind of the same way with Tom Marlborough. Tom Marlborough. So when he called me to congratulate me on getting this position, the message was, Andy, this is The Rock. And I instantly thought I was in trouble. All over again. You just can't shake this stuff. But it wasn't fear, really, with Tom. It was tremendous respect for a guy who loved the kids here and loved this place. And, you can't fake that. Sometimes kids make it hard to love them. And he, of course, spent a lot of time with the kids who were difficult to love, myself included. But he never gave up on us, and I'm thankful for that, because that's the kind of thing that makes a difference in the world. So congratulations to everyone. I hope you have a great night, and thank you for including me.
Next, I would like to call up Sarah O Connell, president of the Dover-Sherborn Boosters. Sarah?
Good evening. I'm Sarah O'Connell, and I'm the new Boosters president. I couldn't be more excited about being part of a team that supports the athletes and the coaches of Dover-Sherborn. I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame team for their tireless work they put in for this fantastic evening together. The gymnasium looks wonderful, from the centerpieces representing the sports to the banners of the inductees who we are here to honor tonight. This evening we celebrate over 50 years of successful athletics here at DS, and together we will continue the tradition for the next. The Boosters look forward to supporting this growing event and honoring past, current, and future athletes, coaches, and all others involved in the DS athletics. In honor of Kurt, the Boosters will make a donation to the MECO program and scholarship fund. Congratulations to the new Hall of Famers. Go Ray.
All right, let me begin with a few thank yous. First, I must acknowledge the Hall of Fame committee. I would ask them to please stand up as I called their name, but they are already standing up. This is how they do things before I even ask them. Jenny Brady, very good. Sue Conley, Carly Eccles, George Licht, Ani Thompson, Judy Schultz, and Bob Willie. Bob, where are you? There you go. From the nominations we have received during the past 3 years, this group of dedicated alumni has selected 14 athletes, 3 coaches, 2 contributors, and 3 teams. These folks have also put this wonderful event together with both passion and efficiency. It's the best group of people I have ever worked with. I would also like to thank the Dover-Sherborn boosters for their assistance with promotion and ticket sales. Dean Bogan and the custodians for the important things they have done behind the scenes. Thanks to Betty Brady. The flowers, once again, are beautiful. Thanks to the student volunteers who helped set up last night and are giving their time today. Thanks to Roach Brothers for the food you will receive. Thanks to Audio and Lighting Unlimited for the clarity of sound you now enjoy. And finally, thanks to Peak Event Services for the sturdy tables and chairs where you now sit. We begin. Glory Days. Though Bruce Springsteen warned in that song for us not to dwell in the past, true glory is well worth our occasional recollection and attention. True glory suggests magnificence, beauty, wonder, brilliance, and, yes, fame. There are times in our lives when we witness great things that others do, or do great things that others witness. Sports provide opportunities for individuals and teams to make such an impression. Imagine, if you will, how many players and games and coaches have represented this school on all of Dover-Sherborn's varsity teams. Think about that for a moment. How many games, how many matches, how many meets have been held or played? Some individuals excel in a single sport, others in 3 or more. Some are the best in their class, the best in the school, the best in the league, the best in the state. Of those, a few seem to be the best in the history of Dover-Sherborn High School. And this Hall of Fame seeks to recognize those athletes, coaches, teams, and contributors who, because of what they did, and more importantly, how they did it, truly stand out. We rely on the memory of those who witnessed in person these people and those teams, the ones that have done something truly notable. While there are many candidates in all of our categories worthy of consideration, not all will be selected. We will be able to recognize only a few at a time, so we will always face difficult choices. No central database exists where all individual and team records can be found or achievements listed. At times, the greatness will be clear in those numbers. Sometimes, though, what matters most about a player or team can only be appreciated if seen, if witnessed, if experienced. Context matters too. The number and variety of sports, the composition of the Tri-Valley League, the existence and format of state tournaments has, of course, changed over time. Tonight, we recognize, appreciate, and celebrate the achievement of 4 athletes, 1 contributor, and 1 team. Others will help you to understand what brought each inductee here, but they have all one thing in common. At a moment in time, these folks were among the best we've ever had. At this moment in time, we, the members of the Dover-Sherborn community, acknowledge them for what they have done. It is a special night. Now, it's time for dinner. Enjoy. Now we will get to the inductions. The way it will work is the following pattern. I will introduce who the person is, and then I will introduce a person who will introduce the person, and then we will hear from the actual inductee. So 3 different speakers until the end. Then George Licht will play my role, and we will recognize the football team. So, all right, our first inductee, Vicki Greymont, class of 1983, and she will be introduced by her soccer and basketball coach, Mr. Don Cannon.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank the committee, as several others have, for hosting this event and taking on the very difficult task of selecting outstanding athletes, coaches, and players whom we induct into the Hall of Fame. These are men and women who have distinguished themselves on and off the field at Dover-Sherborn, who represent the highest standards of excellence, and who certainly deserve our congratulations for what they've accomplished. In particular, and on a kind of personal note, I want to personally congratulate Jim Lorenzen, who is and always has been a class act as an individual and a model of what an athletic director should be. Highly respected by everyone who knows him, Jim remains a tremendous advocate for DS athletics, and in many ways, he can be thought of as the principal architect of the sports program that we celebrate today. Maybe more important than that, though, he's the one person I know who can put up with me on the golf course week after week after week. And for that, I can't thank him enough. Now, let me say a few words about Vicki Greymont. Looking back some 40 years now, you might think that my memory has failed, that her accomplishments have become faded somehow, but it's exactly the opposite. If I were to form a team today of any kind, I would start with her. She's a natural leader, tough as nails, one of the greatest competitors I've ever seen, whether male or female. Sometimes gritty, sometimes magical, her play on the field or the court always inspired confidence and trust in her teammates. More importantly, perhaps, the smile on her face reminded them again and again that what they were doing together would always be a source of joy and pride. That's something they could carry with them in whatever endeavor they chose later on in life. And this is no small thing. It's what sports at its best should be about. And for me, Vicki Greymont stands for that. She made everyone around her better, whether as players or as people. By her example, her teammates discovered talents they didn't know they had. And they believed in victory when realistically they didn't always have that possibility. Unselfish, self-deprecating, almost to a fault. She didn't care who got the goal or the basket or the accolades. Everyone was a winner when a part of the team. Can there be any greater joy than the game itself? She always seemed to say. Her accomplishments are many. A member of the class of 1983, she was a three-sport student athlete, playing soccer, basketball, and softball for the Raiders. She was a 6-time varsity letter winner and served as captain of the soccer team for 3 years and captain of the basketball team her senior year. She was honored as a 3-time TVL All-Star in soccer and a TVL All-Star her senior year in basketball. She was also named a soccer team MVP twice and was honored as a second-team All-Scholastic team member her sophomore and junior year, as well as first team All-Scholastic member her senior year. It's important to note that she and her classmates, people like Vicki Gray over here, Sue Huey, whom you might know, Sandy Curtis, Mara Majeski, all tremendous athletes themselves, began the soccer program at Dover-Sherborn, and that was her sophomore year. Of course, they had some vigorous support by Vicki's mother, Sally, who knew the talent that these girls had. And there was also another man involved, too, someone who became a good friend for me and eventually a mentor, and that's Bruce Gray. They fought for that program, and boy, did it succeed. Amazingly, the team had a combined record of 37-9-9 over the first 3 years. And they were competing against schools then who were 3 and 4 times the size, since there was only one division in soccer when we first started. Even more amazing for a team just starting out, they made tournament all 3 years and won the league championship her junior and senior year. And this is a brand new team. Then there's basketball to mention. In 1982, her junior year, Vicki led a talented team to what was sometimes referred to as a Division III state title, first of its kind in girls basketball at Dover-Sherborn. I say was referred to as a state title because that year there was a gas crisis going on, and the MIAA ruled that you couldn't take transportation to the other part of the state for tournament play. And so there was never an actual state final. DS went as far as they could by winning the Eastern Mass state final against Cathedral, and we kind of thought of that as our state championship. Then in her senior year, Vicki's team went to the Southeastern Mass final and lost in a heartbreaker to a team, I think, from Wareham. What may have been her most stunning accomplishment, however, came sophomore year, when I brought her up from the JVs for tournament play. It's something you'll see a lot of varsity teams do. And we had to play Westwood, who had not lost to a TVL team for some 140 games over a period of about 10 years. It's a record I don't think anybody has duplicated. We had a solid team, but I knew what she was capable of, and so did her coach, Ted Freely, whose judgment I trusted implicitly. Westwood had already defeated us twice during the season, and so when we were well into the game and not able to counter a Westwood rally, I looked at Ted, and he gave me a nod, and I put Vicki in as point guard. The game changed immediately. Westwood had never seen her before. Who was this kid? Sophomore from the JVs? Made no sense. Suddenly she was making baskets, taking charges, stealing errant passes, putting everyone on the team into play. Our juniors and seniors sealed the game in the last minute, but Vicki had given the team a lift when they needed it most. And this from a sophomore, playing in her first varsity game. We ended up winning the game 53-50 that night in what was perhaps the biggest upset in TVL history, in a game that anybody who was there will never forget. This gives you a sense of what this young woman could do and why I'm so pleased to have nominated her for this award today. And so, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Vicki Greymont.
Wow. Thank you, Don. And thank you, Dover-Sherborn Hall of Fame Committee and boosters for this wonderful Hall of Fame recognition ceremony. I'm truly honored. Congratulations to tonight's inductees, coaches, and team. My great-uncle, Al Lastman, was known in the 1920s for his athleticism. He went to NYU. He was their best boxer, and at that time, he was thought to have the most promising heavyweight boxing career since Jack Dempsey's rise. He was known for knocking out opponents early in the first round. He was also the captain of the football team at NYU. He had a significant head injury during one game, and just after rehabbing from his injury, he drowned while saving 3 young boys when they had turned over their canoe in a lake. One day, I hope to write his tragic story, but I do believe this is where my athletic gene came from. Though my father had the same exact tall, strong, athletic build as his uncle, he did not inherit Uncle Al's athletic talent. It was quite funny to watch my father play kickball or wiffle ball. My father did inherit a strong work ethic from my Uncle Al. And as children, my brother Terry, my sister Jill, and myself were allowed to leave our work chores to play our sports games, as long as we returned right after our game to finish the workday. I'm sure this is where my drive came from, and probably my fitness, because in the 70s and 80s we didn't focus on fitness other than going to your practice for your sport that you were playing. My father was supportive of sports we played. He worked so much that he rarely attended a game. And I remember Don Cannon asking if my father was around once, which we all thought to be quite funny in my family. The reason why he would even ask this is because my mother, Sally, was at every game and every event. Now, my mother did not have that athletic gene either, but she was the one that paved the path for me to play sports. I think part of the reason she worked so hard for me to make a team for me to play on is that I insisted on playing on the football team in 4th grade. I remember my parents saying absolutely not, that it would be extremely awkward for the coach to have a girl play on the football team. So that year they let 3 little girls play on the boys' soccer team. So that was Maura Majeski, Sue Huey, and myself. So I had, grown up playing at recess and after school and with the boys, and I didn't understand why we weren't allowed to. So then the next year, my mother joined with other parents, including Dr. Gray, to fight to create the first girls' soccer teams for their daughters to play on in Sherborn. We created the team, and we even found an available town land to make into soccer field for our team. We physically made these fields. Everybody was there turning over the dirt, raking, seeding. The fields are still there in Sherborn today. So my mother and Dr. Gray and other parents continued the fight for us several years later when we were about to enter high school in 1979. My freshman year, our parents put together a soccer team to scrimmage all the other varsity teams around and in our league, in the Dover-Sherborn League. We were provided uniforms by the high school. Yep, skin-tight, polyester shirts handed down to us from the JV volleyball team because they had gotten new uniforms. It was a type of material that stood up on its own without a player in it. Once again, my mother saved the day, and sewed extra panels in the side so that they would fit and it wouldn't be so skin-tight. Despite the uniforms, that unofficial year, we beat or tied every team in the league. We were as driven as our parents. We worked hard, we knew each other well, and we were family. That year, it was decided by the boosters and the league that we definitely had earned a spot for the Dover-Sherborn girls varsity team. And we were fortunate enough to have Don Cannon lead our team as head coach. In our first official year, my sophomore year, we made state tournament. We were the first girls team to make tournament their first year of existence. We made it to states each of those first 3 years. We were one cohesive unit. Many of us paid it forward by refereeing games and coaching other young girls' teams. Soccer came naturally to me. No one ever had to teach me how to play, but basketball was a different story. I had to work hard to develop skills. I was very short until my junior year, and then I was just average short. But I was lucky because my father could build or create anything, and he built us a basketball net and backboard, which meant I could easily practice on our gravel driveway at lunch break on those work days. One of my fondest memories of basketball comes from my sophomore year, as Don Cannon just described. I was on the JV team, a great JV team with Ted Freely as the coach, and I got moved up to varsity for that game. And during the season, Westwood had beat us both times. And I don't want to be redundant here, but they had won the championship previous 3 years, and they were clearly slated to win it again. The game was at Massasoit College. There was a snowstorm that day, and it was one of the games my father came to see. Maybe he brought us some luck, because we won. We beat Westwood, and I got to play in a varsity tournament and put some points on the board. It was probably the most exciting game I had ever played in. And then I thought it was Wareham that we played next. Maybe my years are mixed up. And the team had 2 twin girls who were definitely great ball handlers, but they were also 6 feet tall. So we didn't win that game. But no one could take away what we had done in the first round game against Westwood. Don Cannon and I recently, reminisced about my junior year basketball team as he talked to you about where we won the tournament, won the championship because of the gas crunch. I also played softball. I liked the sport, my teammates and the coaches, but I much preferred the fast pace of basketball and of soccer. So there are a lot of external factors that go into a good athlete. The talented student athlete cannot be successful without its community, its school, its coaches, teammates, and family. Good genes are not enough. I had a very supportive family who actually created a path for me. They're supporting me by being here tonight, so thank you. And to my friends who are here tonight. This DS community and school system was strong and supportive of creating girls' teams when they did not exist. I had the best coaches to guide me. And as you now know, Don Cannon was coach for both soccer and basketball. Thank you, Don, for nominating me and pushing me to be better than I thought I could be. All of these things combined are what allowed me to be the athlete I was. And I was very fortunate to have all this. And thank you for letting me relive my glory days. Thank you.
Our next inductee is Paige McTavish DeSisto, class of 1990, who will be introduced by her father, Dave McTavish.
Good evening. Thank the Dover-Sherborn Boosters Club as well as the Hall of Fame Committee for all hard work and making this evening possible. Thank you very much. Hi. And I will start over again now. Looking around tonight, I see Jim Lorenzen here being honored also. And he was the athletic director when I was the Park and Recreation Director in Dover. I spent endless hours and days and sometimes nights with he and his sister Susan coming up here begging and pleading for field space and gym space, my athletic programs. So Jim, thank you for your professionalism, and enduring all my constant begging and pleading. Also, I look in front of me, I see Judd Smith, friend of the family. Our friends are very close. His mom, J.C., is here tonight also. And we were the classmates, the first graduating class from Dover-Sherborn in 1964. Yeah, I know, great, that old, huh? I'm sure his dad has passed away, Bob. I'm sure he's looking down with great pride, and we all miss him very much. Page's first experience up here at Dover-Sherborn was to, other than playing basketball in the winter, but also to play softball in the spring. Even though she was the leading batting average of the team, the school committee, or the school directors, decided to cut softball that year. So she moved on to some other avenue, and Coach Cannon came to her in the sophomore year and said, Paige, why don't you play soccer? Her response was, Coach Cannon, I don't do running. I'm not going to run. I'm not playing soccer. Thank you. From that point on, in her track program, she, in her sophomore year, established all the new records here at Dover-Sherborn for distance and shot put. I could see she had potential, so I looked into some of my contacts, and I found a former Olympian athlete in track up at UNH, New Hampshire. So every third Wednesday, I would come by Dover-Sherborn High School at 2:15 and pick up Paige. We'd take a 2-hour ride to UNH, where the coach would train her for 2 hours solid. Then we had the 2-hour ride back home again, which was a great bonding period for me, for Paige. She was always the forgotten child. As my son was a good hockey player, we spent all our time with him, and Paige was always usually left home, and she was happy with that at the time. Then she realized that, oh, wait a minute now, I'm sorry, he plays on the hockey team. There are 15 boys I haven't met yet. So she loved hockey also. Sorry, Paige. At Dover-Sherborn, she excelled sophomore, or junior, senior years, setting all new records for Tri-Valley as well as Dover-Sherborn High School, and they still stand now today, that many years ago. On completion of high school, she was recruited by Boston College for track, and there she became the team captain for the last 2 years, and went on to break all the records at BC, establishing 12 new records, and I think some of them still stand today for discus, hammer, and shot put. She qualified for nationals both in high school and in college as well. So I guess without any further ado, I would like to introduce very proudly my daughter Paige.
I'm really hard to forget. I was not the forgotten child, just so you know. I'd like to start by saying thank you, not just to the boosters and to the selection committee, but to all of the people who worked here at DS and who gave me such a good experience in school. Back when I was in the 8th grade, I took gym class with this teacher who came over here from the high school. And I remember him coming into our class, and on maybe my second or third class, he had us all line up in the center of the gym. And there was nothing there but a split in the seats and a scale. And I said, what are we doing? And he said, we're doing a fitness unit. And I said, okay, I'm going to weigh you. And I said, oh, we've not met. No, I'm sorry. So I stepped out of the line and I went aside. And it wasn't until later on in class he came over to me and he said, I saw what you did. And I said, okay. And I waited for something to happen, and nothing did. And he just kind of went about his day. And I thought, well, that's really strange. But what I really received was a message that it didn't matter who we were, that DS was accepting and appreciative of who we were at any size and any stature. And as a young girl, that was a really hard thing for me to get. And I so appreciate it. And it's so fitting to me that Mr. Lorenzen's here tonight, because I don't know if he realized he gave me that message, but I got it, and I got it loud and clear. So thank you for that. So in the mid to late 80s, when styles changed and things changed around a little bit, The Limited was a really big store for clothing. And those of you who will remember, I think they had the same sweater in like 25 different colors. And the reason I say that is just to kind of highlight the fact that uniformity was really in the 80s, the 90s, and it was something that I was just not part of. It was not who I was never going to fit in like everybody else. And I think that's what I walked away from Dover-Sherborn with the most, was understanding that I didn't have to be like everyone else. I could kind of find my own route, find what made me happy, and find where I needed to be myself. And I really appreciated that. When I first got to the high school, we had played soccer growing up. I think all girls did. And then I heard about Coach Cannon, and he had this timed 2-mile run. And I thought, I would love to play field hockey. That's a great idea. And so I did. I went out for field hockey instead until I found out they had to wear skirts. And I was a little bit unnerved by that, but okay, I can do it. And then I think I was Coach Johnson's first basketball team. Am I right? Fresh out of Natick High School and college, she came out here. And once again, she had us running the lines and going back and forth. And I'm fairly confident practice had been over an hour or two while I was still doing my wind sprints. But in the end of it all, I ended up playing softball. And for the first time, I found out my size and strength were going to be a major advantage. Because Coach Freely taught me that as the one of only 2 freshmen on the team, I got to carry all of the equipment from here all the way to the softball field that's all the way down by Farm Street. And that was the honor I got until I was one of the best batters on the team. And then I got to pass that on to someone else who maybe needed a little more work with it. But for the first time in my life, after softball was kind of cut from the program, I was pushed into doing a sport that I didn't really feel comfortable doing. It was not a team sport in my mind. It was the idea of throwing a metal ball seemed rather silly. My parents often described it as kind of like watching paint dry, only slower. And so Mr. Lorenzen had said, you know, you'll be great at this. Just try it, Paige. Come on. And I said, seriously, I don't think this is a good idea. And he talked me into it, and he said, what if I promise you that you can wear something different than those tank tops? And then you had me. He kept saying to me, my son, he runs this sporting goods store. I can get you a uniform in your size. And once again, he kept giving me that same message of acceptance and appreciation that it didn't matter if I was the largest girl rumbling down the basketball court and knocking everybody out of the way as I boxed out and protected the post, or if I was trying to make my way down the field hockey field with my stick in hand and the other girls all got out of the way. I knew that I would have a uniform that fit me and I would be well representing our team and our community. But the most important thing I got out of all of it was that our community was so important to me. You know, we would ride the late bus home at 6 o'clock at night, and it was dark out sometimes. And Mr. Bennett, I don't know, those of you guys who are from Dover will remember Mr. Bennett. He was our bus driver. His wife worked at the post office. And it didn't matter what game I had or what meet I was in. He knew the results of everything I did. And if he wasn't the one bothering me on the weekends to see how I had done, I had Sergeant Mitchell call me from the Dover Police to find out what had happened the night before because the results were not in the Boston Globe. They had missed the printing. it was just a community full of people who really made me understand the value of growing up here in Dover. And it was so important to who I am today. So after I was doing track for a while and trying to make JL happy while trying to teach my dad that it really didn't matter if I threw this ball, my dad started taking me to New Hampshire, as he told you. And 2 hours solid of throwing a metal ball was pretty intense. And I thought, this is tiring, and this isn't really very much fun, to be honest. And then he took me outside and introduced me to the discus. And I figured out that the farther I threw it, the farther I had to run out to get it. And I almost quit. But I didn't, because I enjoyed going to New Hampshire. He always took me to Pizza Hut afterwards. Definite bonus. So those of you who know my dad know that there is no halfway in our family. You either do or you do harder. You have to do it, and you have to do it well. My mom and dad didn't go on vacations. Their family life was their life. We spent our entire lives in hockey rinks or in fields or in tracks throughout the United States, Canada, Europe. We didn't do any kind of skiing. We didn't go to the beach. My mom and dad didn't take time off that wasn't at our sports. My parents were at every meet, every game, every event we ever had. So much so that when I was a senior in high school, we had the state track meet kind of late in the afternoon. And the nationals were in Syracuse early the next morning. And there was no doubt in my parents' mind. We were going to Syracuse. It didn't matter how hard it snowed. We were going to Syracuse. And so my parents loaded me into the Woody station wagon, and they got all of our stuff up, and my dad dragged himself all the way up to Syracuse. And I don't even remember being there. I just remember that my parents were always there. It didn't matter if I came in first, I came in last, or I completely fouled out, and I appreciated that so much. My parents never missed a meet. I think the first one they ever didn't go to was when I was at the Track and Field Nationals in 1996 in Atlanta. And it was when we had the drug testing, and I was sitting next to Gwen Torrance. And I remember this weird feeling of, oh my God, do you know who she is? And Carl Lewis was there too. He was kind of a famous guy, and I was trying to figure out how I could get their autographs and their pictures. And one of the girls nudged me and said, no, you're competing here too. And I thought, I wonder if they know that. Will I get a uniform? I think the most important thing out of all of my experiences was the fact that I felt this constant support, appreciation, and I was really taught to respect myself no matter what came my way. And I appreciated that more than anyone at DS could ever have realized, that that lesson was given to me day in and day out, that every teacher and every coach here at the high school had our best interest at heart at all times. And I really appreciate that, and so much so that I eventually went on to become a teacher myself. I never really expected that throwing a little metal ball or a rubber discus could give me everything that it did. It virtually paid for my education. It gave me all sorts of travel opportunities. But it also gave me my most important life lessons. And in the end, it gave me the career that I only could have dreamed of having, where I now have that opportunity to make a difference in other people's lives the way that people here did for me. And so in closing, I just want to say thank you. I think that day in and day out, you do your jobs here at DS, and I don't know that you realize the impact you had on all of us. The experience was amazing, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to go a little out of order, and we're going to recognize the team. So I'm going to have Georgia Licht come up and take over for a moment. So team, then we will go back to the other order. Thank you for your patience.
I would first like to honor the deceased from the 1970 PBL Championship football team, the players, the coach. First, Coach Bob Walsh, Captain Bart Fessenden, Brian Corbett, Ralph Boone, Todd Walter, David Mason. This time, we can have a moment of silence. I now want to say a few words about Captain Bart, the animal pheasant. 4 years ago, yesterday, he died of a tragic heart attack. Every great team has to have great leadership. Bart was inspirational, as tough as any individual I ever met, and he was so proud to lead his team, his school, and his community. Bart did a masterful job being a conduit between the team and the coaches. The success of this team is a springboard for Bart in life. He was a great husband to Andrea, a great father to Willie, and a great father-in-law to Kate. He was so proud to coach Willie in middle school, along with Jimmy Mitchell and Jeet Mitchell. Cherished every moment that he had with Willie when he coached him. When Willie was elected as the two-time captain of the varsity football team, Bart was the proudest dad I've ever seen. What an accomplishment. When Willie became the captain, and they were the first father-son combination to ever be captain of the varsity football team in Raider Nation. Flo, Bart's mom, was the #1 fan of the football team. How can you not remember the cowbells and her booming voice? Flo loved all the boys on the team and loved her community. When I coached with Bart, he held me accountable every day and had set a high standard for everyone around him. Unfortunately, Bart passed shortly before his granddaughter Hannah was born. He was a great role model to me and everyone around him. We miss him every day. Bart, we love you. I'd now like to introduce Michael King, the team statistician, who will say a few words to kick off a prelude of the season.
Thank you. And first, in the last page of the program, it says, the historic victory over Medfield at home set off a celebration highlighted by the teams cheering down the goalpost. Well, but I was on the team for only one game, but is Dr. Keogh still here? Okay, well, I tore down the goalpost. But only one of them. And then the other one, please stand. John Kirby helped me tear down the other one, so. I'm going to ask Coach Marlborough, we're going to bring back to you this after, but I want you to sign it. And Emily, if you have a second, would you please come up here? I just by chance got this. Someone posted on Facebook, said, texting my dad, this was Mr. Frothingham from the school committee. finally returning it back. Give it back, and let Coach sign it, and then he's going to frame it. It's going to finally be home, and then we'll be back in the high school. Coach, does that count towards my 3 minutes? Looking back at the 1970 Dover-Sherborn football season, people who witnessed the action might now remember it as a magical season, or in my instance, it was a magical ride. Back in 1970, when anyone from the Dover-Sherborn world heard the words magical ride, for us people, David, we think ride, we think of Paragon Park, Nantasket Beach. Now, as we all tonight have been fondly recalling each and every game of that championship season, although none of us realized it at that time, each of the 9 games, in essence, was like hopping on one of the rides at Paragon Park. In the first 2 weeks of the season, the Raiders outscored their opponent 83-0, thus making the opening of the schedule. First one was the Teacup Ride, also known as Bellingham, and the Kiddie Merry-Go-Round, also known as West Boylston. And it was nothing more than a serving of cotton candy and followed by fried dough. Then in week 3, the Raiders hopped on the bumper cars, also known as Hopkinton, and on a Boston Harbor dense, foggy afternoon, the undefeated DS Gridiron Gang faced their first tough challenge of the year. After 3 straight years of losses to the Hillers, which led to nothing but disappointed faces, Coach Marlborough and everybody on the team bench. But not this year, because as the final whistle of the game sounded, the fog had dissipated, and the entire Raiders side of the field was a bright glow of white, courtesy of the wide smile of all the players, coaches, and fans. Why were they all smiling? Who wouldn't be ecstatic if their team won 40-6? So far, the Raiders have outscored their opponents 123-6. Undefeated, 4-0, and 3-0 tied for first place. Then, for those of you familiar with Paragon Park, it was on to the Wild Mouse, which is the second scariest ride. David, you're laughing. Probably didn't even dare to go on that, but for the next 2 weeks, the Wild Mice, Millis and Medway, and the result, 2 losses. Just 1 touchdown and 1 field goal in each of the games was all that stood between DS and a perfect 6-0 season. And the back-to-back losses on the Wild Mouse may have gotten the best of the Raiders, or most teams, but instead of worrying about what would have been if only this had happened instead, the entire team, led by the coaches and the captain, co-captains, they didn't give up, they wouldn't let up, and they stayed focused on just one thing, the next game on the schedule. Next, week 6, Coach Marlborough was faced with preparing the Raiders for the toughest, biggest, and scariest ride on the park. On Saturday, Halloween Day, as DS boarded their ride, a giant roller coaster, also known as the undefeated Holliston Panthers. Coach dared his team to sit in the front row. And when the dust settled and the sun set on the game, this epic battle was the Tri-Valley League preview of Ali Frazier 1, 2, and 3 combined. I'm not going to tell you what happened. Week 7 and 8, although the rides on paper were not difficult. The Ladybug Ride, also known as Ashland, and the Carousel, also known as Norton. The Raiders needed to win both games. Now, on to Thanksgiving Day, the Raiders were scheduled to face off against their arch rival, Medfield, also known as an encore on the giant Ferris wheel, giant roller coaster. Coach Marlborough planned to challenge the team to sit in the front with their arms in the way, in the air, no holding on for the whole ride. And it was the ultimate challenge. And this Turkey Day game contest would most likely be a must-win situation for the Raiders. Obviously, we wouldn't be up here if the outcome wasn't happy, but there's one thing that I can leave you with. That on Tuesday, November 26, 1970, at the high school football field, any Raider fan in attendance that day was not just fortunate to have witnessed a spectacular game, but also extra lucky to have taken part in a celebration these towns or school never will or ever again see. And to think that this team, gentlemen out there, and these coaches were, are, and will always be the individuals who crafted this unforgettable magic ride. Thank you.
In the absence of Captain John Mott, who could not attend tonight, and unfortunately, obviously, our beloved Bart, I'd like to now have Charlie Carlson, who was an integral part of the championship team, come up and speak.
Hey, everybody. So I'm grateful to be here, and it's been a blast tonight to meet up with a bunch of the guys who joined me on the 1970 team. I wish they had all been here tonight, but it's been wonderful to see those who were able to attend. I will try and be brief, because you've been sitting a long time. I just have a few things I'd like to say. First, as far as I was concerned, high school football was the best experience that I ever had in team sports. And I've thought a bunch about why that is, and it's a mix. It's a mix in all ways. It's hot and cold weather, it's sunny skies and heavy rain, it's pleasure and pain, it's teamwork and individualism, it's successes and failures individually and collectively. Coach Marlborough always said, hey, it's just like life. And it was, and it is. The 70 team had all those things, and I loved all of it. Bus rides, pep rallies, cheerleaders, fans, newspaper stories. They were written by my best friend at the time, classmate Mark Casey, with photos by classmate Rick Sennett. It was wonderful to experience in all ways. The guys, as you've heard, were led by Bart and John. Bart, actually, his mother was notable for other things besides those that you've already heard about. She made sure that Bart always had the cleanest uniform. And we had to learn about how you cleaned uniforms from Bart and his mother. Bart was also the highest energy guy on the team at all times. My memories of the season are limited. I don't remember individual games or even the championship game. I don't remember much about individual performances. And what I remember of my own career isn't always the best. I remember falling down on pass routes because I have pigeon feet, and they were great for blocking, but not so great for making a 90-degree cut to the outside at speed. So I fell down from time to time. I remember getting absolutely run over by some fullback and having the wind knocked out of me and being embarrassed. I remember Tim Dalton on my right on the offensive line and feeling very confident that we can open holes all the time. I remember having a defensive team that was incredibly intense. I was responsible for calling signals for the defense, and so I got to look in their eyes each time while I was calling the signals. And that was an experience. That was the first time I was ever kind of leading a group of guys, and there was a bit of intimidation coming my way. At the same time, I was trying to exhort them to do better. But it was exciting all the time. And I kept a bunch of clippings from that season and from the 1969 season. It's, I guess, testimony to how powerful that experience was. As for Coach Marlborough, others have spoken about him tonight. I have a lot of memories of him. He was beyond intense for all of us. The name The Rock was well-deserved. He was always serious and organized at practice, at games. He didn't celebrate a lot. He passed that attitude on to his coaches, and they too were serious. He was able to get very mad when we weren't playing well. I remember halftime talks in the dressing rooms that were sometimes extremely scary. There was, in fact, one day, and I remember this very clearly, when a baseball bat and a trash can got very close to each other, repeatedly, in an effort to change our behavior. It had some effect, but I don't know whether it did more than scare me. Coach Marlborough's exhortations were all about aggressiveness. Here's one from a preseason letter to the 1969 team, which I've kept in a folder. Ball carriers must be pursued, persecuted, and punished. Also, grunt loudly whenever you make contact with dummies or men, which I understood was meant to intimidate opponents, so I grunted many times. On the other hand, those were different times, and they did have an effect. Coach Marlborough, on the other hand, was very thoughtful and kind. He wrote me a 3.5-page letter after my freshman year when I'd strained ligaments in my knee and told him I was uncertain whether I wanted to play again. He expressed his understanding based on his personal experiences with a knee injury, and he didn't tell me what to do. He told me I had sufficient animosity and aggressiveness, lots of alpha male word, and I should try out for tight end and middle linebacker. So I did, and I loved it. And I still have the letter. So I'll wrap up here by saying thanks to Coach Marlborough and for the teammates who gave me the greatest time of my life in team sports. And I'm really grateful to the boosters for putting on this event. And finally, I'd like to take a minute and ask Rob Sennett to join me up here. Rob would also like to say a couple of words before the team portion of this event is over.
I just saw Charlie a few minutes ago, and he asked me to speak, so I'm not prepared. But I am prepared. Being on the team in 1970 was such a special honor. The coaches, I remember Coach Marlborough was a mountain of a man who was a real man. someone to look up to. We became a team. That's what I distinctly remember the coaches crafting us as a team. And that's why we won the championship. We were a team, we were one. Never gave up. We prepared. I did some math, been thinking about this night, just kind of conceptualizing how much work we did. We practiced for over 200 hours during the season to play 9 games, 9 one-hour experiences. And boy, the coaches had us ready. And I have fond memories of teammates. One is of Bart Pheasant and the Animal, taking Richie Monahan out of bounds and trying to bite his leg off through his face mask, which wasn't possible. But that was Bart, if you knew Bart, you know. And other folks, especially Brian Corbett, who was really an athlete, great athlete. I'm so sad to hear that he passed away. And Brian was such a team player and a great athlete. His children and wife are here, so it was nice to meet them. But I'll just never forget how young the coaches were. Little did we realize they were only 8, 9 years older than we were, and it was just such a good experience, such a wholesome experience to play for Dover-Sherborn. That's it. We were winners. Thank you.
It's wonderful to be here. Wasn't quite sure I would be able to be here. I haven't been out of my house for over 2 months, except to go to doctors and hospitals. But I didn't want to miss this for any reason. So I'm here, but bear with me. Can you all hear me clearly right now? First of all, Michael King, I thank you very much. But because you talked so long, I only have 2 minutes left to my time. Michael is unbelievable with statistics. And he's an author also. But at any rate, Mike, I do appreciate it. I'd like to extend my congratulations to Vicki, Paige, Kurt, Judd, and Jim Lorenzen. Jim Lorenzen has probably been the best Tri-Valley League athletic director in the whole history of the Tri-Valley League. He's unbelievable. I would also like to introduce the coaches who are responsible for the success of the 70 Dover-Sherborn team. Coach Joe Davin, would you and your wife please stand up over there? Bobby Linton, I'm not sure where you are. Would you stand up? Thanks, Bobby. His wife, Tricia. And also Wally Thornton, who is over in the corner with his wife, Sharon. My wife is also over there too, and I'd like to have her stand up because believe me, I wouldn't be here tonight without her. By the way, all of us coaches, we're really looking forward To all of you 65, 66, 70, 67-year-old kids, because you were kids 50 years ago. Unbelievable. 1964 to 1970, I want you to think about two numbers, 8 and 80, 8 and 80. In 1964, at our very second practice, this is when I started here in 1964, only 8 players showed up. I said to myself, why in the hell did I ever leave Stoughton? 8 people out for a varsity and junior varsity. Of course, we only had 90 boys in the school. But we were progressing. Each year, we were progressing. In 1969, we became competitive in the Tri-Valley. And it was under our co-captains, Carl Swenson and Jeff Melnick. Every good team needs good leadership. If it doesn't have good leadership, it's not going to be a good team. We were getting close. Next year, Bart Besenden and John Mott's leadership got us there. In 1970, we became a program to be dealt with. We now were a coaching staff of 5, and we had a volunteer coach from Bob Walsh from Dover. We had 50 varsity players and 30 freshman players. 8 and 80 in 7 years. 8 and 80 in 7 years. 2 of our new coaches made significant contributions that season. Mike Kayatsa, who was unable to be here, he's in North Carolina right now, unfortunately couldn't make it, but he brought defense to Dover-Sherborn. He brought a new defense here and was outstanding coach. Also, Bob Walsh underscored the perfecting of the passing game at the Sunday morning pass-arounds. He's a volunteer coach who fit in with us, and we loved him. Unfortunately, we lost him a lot of years ago to cancer. By the way, there's something here that I'm going to mention. I'm going to mention something about the boosters. Now, the boosters do wonderful things. Here we are at a wonderful thing tonight, but those years back then, Mr. Jeanette, Rocco Jeanette's dad, produced football guides for all home games. I was supposed to bring the program up here to show you, but the program has 84 pages in it. Unbelievable production. There was tremendous support in both of these towns for our football program. Now, I have to mention something very important about that. We didn't have soccer back then. So the football program was basically football and cross country were the only ones available. The 2 games that truly stand out are the Holliston and Medfield games. Holliston came to Dover undefeated, unscored upon, averaging 50-plus points a game. They left with their first loss when we scored a touchdown in the last minute of the game. Final score, 21-14. And then the Medfield Thanksgiving Day game. We had never beaten Medfield on Thanksgiving. And that day, we had a frozen field, and it really limited our offense. We were trailing 7-0 with 5 minutes left in the game when Brian Corbett led the team to 2 touchdowns and a resounding 15-7 win. It was Dover-Sherborn's first win at the Turkey game. And I'll mention this, too. Believe it or not, there were thousands of people at both of those games. The whole football field was rimmed full, deep, all around. Back then, it was really a big thing. Coach Kayatsa could not be here with us tonight, but he sent me a beautiful note. It's a note to all of you Huns out there, all of you guys that play defense. All of you guys that play defense. This is to you guys particularly. Words we learn to live by. Never be less than the best. Respect everyone. Fear no one. It is not the size of the dog in the fight, the size of the fight in the dog. There is no I in team. And one of his favorites, especially against Holliston, if you're going to run the quarterback option against us, you better bring a lot of quarterbacks. I remember how you guys always made me proud to be a part of your team. It was a pleasure for me to have known you, and it was exciting to have thought about the men you would soon become. Thanks for the memories. Now, you won't understand this, but I'll explain it. Now he told all of you guys to do 25 thunder and lightnings. Now, I got to tell you what a thunder and lightning is. Thunder is you run in place, and then when the whistle blows, you smack the ground as hard as you can and bounce back up, and then the whistle blows again. Now, 25 of those is one significant exertion. But I'll tell you what, it makes you be able to do what you have to do when you're a football player. He also went on to say that should you ever be down in Southport, North Carolina, or Falmouth, Mass., he'd love to see you. In closing, I'm so grateful to have been your coach and so proud of what you guys did to make our program competitive. Excuse me. I truly love what Dover-Sherborn has meant to me and my family. I'm a very lucky man. I have been blessed to have worked in the Dover-Sherborn High School. By the way, this high school is the #1 high school, public high school in Massachusetts. It's a great place, and it's because of all of you people who support the education that you provide for your children. You are the backbone behind the success of this because of your support. And thank you all very much. I most appreciate it.
Would the members of the football team please come up to get their plaques right now? Football team, come on up. Thank everyone for your flexibility. We really appreciate that. All right. Back to the individuals. Our third individual to be inducted this evening is Judd Smith, class of 1992, who will be introduced by his football coach and Hall of Fame member, Harry Rose.
Last time I was here, nobody could hear me. Can you hear me? Is that pretty good? Okay, great. Just quickly, we just honored the outstanding team from 1970. In my opinion, there's only been one truly outstanding team at Dover-Sherborn. It's been there for years. And that team consisted of Mr. Wakely and Mr. Marlborough. They were here for a lot of years. And I think anyone that was here during that time would have to agree. Okay, bear with me now. We've got some people in here that are my age or maybe even a little older. I'm going to mention a few names here. Not that they were inductees into the Dover-Sherborn Hall of Fame, but the names Bart Starr, Yogi Berra, Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, Bobby Hall, Bobby Orr, Jim Brown, Tiger Woods, Ben Hogan. Now, what does that mean to you? What do they all have in common? They're all Hall of Famers. And they all have Hall of Fame names. They all have athletic names. The first time I saw Judd Smith's name appeared, I said, this kid's got to be good. Now think about it, Judd Smith, is that a perfect name? And boy, was I right. He excelled at everything he did. Football, hockey, baseball, and golf. I was fortunate enough to be his football coach. And I will tell you that he was top. He was one of those rare individuals, and maybe except for Brian Corbett, Judd could have played any position on the field at any time and excelled at every one of them. He was that versatile. We played him at receiver and quarterback and running back, and he was outstanding, outstanding. And whenever we needed a yard, I could point and I said, Judd, do you think you could pick up a yard here? And he would give me this Judd Smith smirk and go, yeah, of course I can. You know, a little bit of, I'm not going to say cocky, but he was confident, no question about it. Am I right? I was so confident in him running the ball, picking up a yard. I felt I could walk up to the other line, during the game, walk up, point to the place he's going to run, say, hey, pal, this is the opponent speaking to the other team. I'm running number 18 at you right now. You try to stop him. Now, I will, for the rest of my life, say, why did I not do that against Hopkinton on the 1 yard line? I was talking to go for a field goal. We missed the field goal, and you know how that ended up. But as George Licht said, I've often been referred to as the master of bad decisions, so there we go. On to hockey. That's where he truly excelled. Now, Judd's not a real tall guy, but he was head and shoulders above everyone else on the ice. Think about that. And I could go through all of his awards and his records and such, but they're in here, at your disposal, okay? He is the all-time leader in hockey scoring here at Dover-Sherborn. He also is amongst the leaders in the state. And when you think about it, Massachusetts schoolboy hockey is a very, very historic and has turned out a number of great players over the years, both Olympians and professional hockey players as well. And Judd's right up there amongst the top. Played baseball and golf, which just would tell you the kind of hand-eye coordination the young man has, but those were his kind of secondary sports. It was football and hockey, primarily hockey, that I saw him and saw him excel at. What separates Judd from most athletes Well, obviously his athleticism. Obviously his athleticism is unparalleled. Tenacity. Once again, confidence. Not saying cocky, I'm just saying confident, which is a good thing. And the three words, well, that I would use to describe Judd. The three words, tough, tough, and tough. And it always galls me whenever people outside the Dover-Sherborn system say, oh, those Dover-Sherborn athletes, you know, they're kind of soft, you know, they're good at skiing, and they're good at tennis, and they're golf, and their sailing teams are good, but you know, the other sport. Well, I'll tell you something right now. If I were to go to any of my coaching contemporaries at that time, whether it be Holliston or Medfield or Hopkinton, and you give me your toughest athlete, your biggest badass on your team, and I'm going to put him in a ring with Judd, and guess who's coming out of the ring? I'll take my guy every single time. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Judd Smith to the Dover-Sherborn Hall of Fame.
I haven't aged a bit. Thank you for the kind words, Coach Rose. I love playing for you, Coach Licht, and Coach Bennett. Football, it's a pleasure. I want to thank the nomination committee for accepting my nomination tonight. This means a lot to me. It's a great honor to be part of this whole evening. So thank you very much. I want to thank my family for being here tonight. They're always here for supporting me. College friend Ryan Finesse is here in the front row. And my brother David and my mom, and everyone else, my sister, and everyone, and especially my wife. I can't forget her. She deals with me on a regular basis, so that's a tough thing to do. And then my two kids, Donovan Smith right there, number 10 years old, plays every sport underneath the sun, and is a fantastic athlete. And my daughter, Alexis, who's 6, my honey bunny, she woke us up last night at 2 o'clock in the morning. Her front tooth fell out, and she's missing the 2 front teeth, so and she looks adorable. So, this, like I said before, this is very special. But before I get into that, there's someone in the audience that I really want to thank, who was a mentor to me with hockey when I was here at high school, Dover-Sherborn, also in college. And it's someone that I really respected a lot as a coach and as a friend. And that's Coach Thompson right there. He's someone that's really special. He would have a bunch of us hockey players over to his house on Sunday mornings, and we would shoot pucks in his driveway for hours. And it really helped my game out a lot. He would invite Mike Sparrow, our goalie, and Mike Graham, our other goalie, and they would dress up in their goalie equipment. And we were able to shoot pucks, and it gave me a lot of confidence as a hockey player because basically every time I shot the puck, I scored them. So it really helped out a lot, my game, just getting the confidence, being able to score on those guys at will. I mean, every time I shot, I scored. But but it was thank you, Coach Thompson. So on Christmas Day, my mom came up to me and she says, "Hey, George Licht called you. You need to give George Licht called me. You need to give him a call." And I'm like, "Okay, what's it about?" I'm not sure. Just give him a call. So the day after Christmas, I called Coach Licht, and he gave me the great news that I got inducted to the Hall of Fame, and obviously I was very excited for to tell my wife, my kids, this great story and great event that's going to happen that I got inducted. But I was sitting in my office and I was thinking about this evening, and I kind of became a little bit sad because I knew that the one person I really wanted to be here tonight would not be here, and that's my dad. He passed in 2013, and I owe a lot to him. He was always there for me, brought me to all my practices and my games. He was a coach to me, just someone I truly looked up to as a person. He was a 2-year captain in hockey at BU, and I know that he would really been happy to be here tonight. But I do think he's looking down tonight, probably puffing on one of his Winston cigarettes and chewing his Nicorette gum at the same time. But I know I miss him, and I wish he was here, but I know he's looking down. Today we were driving to the high school, and we were driving through the Dover Center, and we drove by the Dover Library, and I was looking over there, and I saw this field over there, and I remember as a kid after school, every day me and my friends would go play football around this field right in front of the Dover Library. And it was just great memories. I remember after school getting on my Mongoose dirt bike, stopping at the Dover Pharmacy, the drugstore, asking Sandy Ball for an Egg McDover and a Raspberry Lime Ricky, and then head over there and we'd play football until it got dark. And those were some great memories. When it came to hockey, my fondest memories of growing up in Dover was another place we passed on the way here, and that's Channing Pond. There was a pond that Paige's dad was in charge of, the Park and Rec, and I remember as a kid, I used to anticipate being able to play in that pond because I absolutely loved it. And I remember I used to call his office and get his answer machine and always check to see if the ice was ready. The pond was frozen enough. And a lot of times I didn't like the answer, so I would call his house. And I would ask, is the pond ready? Is it frozen? I want to get out there. I remember I was always wanted to be the first one down there when the first day that they opened it up. And I remember they had this fishing tackle box with all the badges in it. And it had all these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. I always wanted to get that number 1 badge and get that. It was something I always want. Sometimes I got it, sometimes I didn't. Unfortunately, his son, David McTavish Jr., had the inside track and it was able to get the 1 badge. But I loved playing on that pond. I would play on that pond for hours, all day long. And I remember that it was open up, it stayed open late at night. They had the lights up in the pond. And I remember Matt Baker was working there, and he would be yelling at me to get off the ice because he wanted to go home. And I, sure enough, didn't listen to him. But, and he would just drive out there and he'd shut off the lights of the Channing Pond, so I knew that it was time to go. But just great memories growing up in Dover. I love playing all the sports at Dover-Sherborn High. It was just a lot of fun. Me being competitive, we had small teams. We didn't have a lot of players on each team, but everyone was really good that was on the team. So we fielded great teams. In football, I loved it because I could play offense, defense, special teams. My goal was just to not come off the field, and something I really liked. And hockey was the same way. We had, on a serious note, we had great goaltending all my 4 years at Dover-Sherborn, and we had some really good teams, so it was a pleasure. In closing, what I wanted to mention is that in hockey, in the hockey world, people that are familiar with hockey, when you want to play at the college level with hockey, typically most people have to play only hockey. It's your only sport that you do, and because it's just so competitive. And so everyone just plays hockey because they're one sport. So I'm very honored and I'm very grateful that I was able to play all 3 sports in high school and then be able to play in college. And it wasn't really the right path, probably, but I would never change that path for the world to be able to play 3 sports at Dover-Sherborn and then also play at the college level. So thank you very much for this. It's a great honor, and I appreciate it very much. So, thank you.
All right, the last individual who will go in this evening, our next inductee, is Kurt Wilson, class of 1990, who will be introduced by his sons Jacob and Jordan.
Good evening. I can't think of someone who deserves this honor more than my dad. When I think of someone who I want to emulate, my father is the first person I think of. Each and every day, he worked his hardest to get to where he is today, and I want to do all I can to match that work ethic and drive. My dad would do anything to better himself, whether it meant early mornings, nights away from home, or countless hours training to become the best he could possibly be in not 1 but 2 sports. He was a sensational football player and track athlete, and was always willing to answer any question we may have if we wanted advice about how to improve our football skills or increase our speed on the track. My dad is more than willing to work with us whenever possible. We're very thankful for all the time he spends with us. I remember a story he once told me about how he would have to stay the night with a teammate on multiple nights in a row due to the fact that he was with the METCO program and wasn't able to get home because of late practices. That showed me that no matter what, he was willing to do whatever he had to make sure that he was giving himself the best chance to be the greatest player he possibly could be, and I admire that. Our dad's commitment and his never give up attitude has not only inspired us, it has brought him here to the Dover-Sherborn Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Dad, we love you.
We're at that awkward stage where I just love embarrassing them by kissing them all the time. Those who know me know I'm not a very serious person, so keep smiling. I just want to first start by thanking the committee. I really appreciate the honor. All the coaches here who coach me as well as other kids. I think coaching is extremely important, especially to the youth. So I just want to thank them and all the memories and lessons that I've learned from them. Also want to thank my family. I really appreciate the support that they've given me over the years, my siblings, my nephews now. I don't have any nieces, just nephews. My in-laws who happen to come tonight, but I really appreciate the support that they've given me all over the years. Last but not least, my friends here at Dover-Sherborn who have been my backbone for many, many years before we graduated and surely after we graduated as well. We're at that stage now where we attended each other's weddings and now we attend each other's kids' sporting events and all that kind of good stuff, so it continues. They mean a lot to me because, as my son said, living in Boston, obviously a lot of the times it was tough getting back and forth. Clearly I wasn't driving myself. But I spent a lot of time at their houses with their parents, and so I really appreciate, everything they've done for me. And I'm not afraid to say I love those guys. As men, I don't think we say it enough to each other, but I like embarrassing them as well. So with sports for me, it's all about the lessons learned and the memories gained. So I just want to share a few of those lessons and memories with you guys. We have plenty of memories from practices and games, the good stuff, the bad stuff. But one in particular stands out to me that's more on a personal note. Having lived in Boston, it wasn't often that my family could get out here to games. for work schedules and traffic and all those types of things, it was really tough. So I just want to share a memory of my older brother. You have that older brother, have that relationship where, I was always excited to come home and tell him, hey, this is how I did it, because he was unable to make the games a lot of times. At that point, he was just starting his career as a firefighter in Waltham, so those crazy shifts of the firefighters, a lot of times made it unable for him to make it to my game. So he was always, as soon as I walked through the door, he was always the first one there to greet me and ask, how things go. And we would sit and talk and talk and talk. So it was my senior year, Thanksgiving game, last game of the season, over at Medfield High. The game was going well. We actually were down at halftime, I believe, by 1 or 2 touchdowns. And at halftime, we, coaches gave the rah-rah speech in the locker room. We came back out and managed to come back from being down at halftime. And what was significant was, I think in that game, in the first half I had 1 touchdown, first half I had 1 touchdown, second half, I believe I scored 3 touchdowns. And all 3 touchdowns happened to be right at my brother's feet. So that means a lot to me. And it's one memory that sticks out because it was the only game that he was able to attend throughout my high school career. So thank you. So I always think back, and my boys get sick of it because it's always lessons. I see them roll their eyes when I try to teach them another lesson about football, about basketball. And I always draw back to it. And in my opinion, you don't really think about those lessons till well after the fact. And so, now that I've been coaching them for a while and coaching other kids, I always think back to, what did I do in high school? What lessons did I learn from my coaches? And so I just want to share a few of those lessons with you guys tonight. Sports has always been a part of my life, both personally and professionally, from playing in high school and college. Spending the first part of my career with the Red Sox as an athletic trainer and strength and conditioning coach. And over those years, I've learned many lessons through sports from some of the coaches here tonight that can be applied in all aspects of life. Some of those, like I said, I didn't realize until later in life when I started coaching my own kids. And I always remind them, that I coach, not only to make them better at their sport, but also so that they can pass on what they've learned, to their own kids one day. And I think that's the most important thing in sports is that, bond that you can have with your family or kids to help them learn and grow. So first was basketball. Basketball was not my number 1 sport. If that list continued over there, I'd probably be on page 225 or something along those lines. Not a prolific scorer, but I loved it. And I loved, playing for Coach DeBose. And like I said, looking back when I started coaching basketball, first person I thought of, Coach DeBose. He was our varsity coach. All right, how did he do? How was he successful? And he was. And I thought about one story with my buddy, Chris Pavlik, who's here tonight, and he's going to be mad at me after this. But Chris was obviously, he's on the list. So he was obviously a very good player. And, like all good players, I think, he had a tendency to take it easy because he was Chris Pavlik. He's all right. Practice is practice. And Coach DeBose didn't really stand for that too much. So during practices, Coach DeBose would always have me on his team, and I'm always thinking, why would he want me on his team? I'm not the best guy here. Why wouldn't he choose those other guys that are really good? Well, looking back on it now, I think Coach DeBose had a plan the whole time. Chris would take it easy in practice, so I think Coach DeBose would put me on his team because I was fast. And I would make Chris run up and down the court like no other. And so I remember we talk about this story all the time. One in practice in particular where I don't know whether Chris was out late the night before, but he was not on his game at all. And Coach DeBose picked up on it, and the yelling started. Chris, what are you doing? Why are you so lazy? How come you can't keep up? Endless, and on and on and on. And so every time he would yell at Chris, he would look at me and go, Kurt, run. And so quite naturally, I would beat Chris down the court every single time. And I would wind up with a wide open jump shot or a layup. And here comes the yelling again. See, Chris, got you again, sucker. And I remember this specifically, but what I learned from that was all players need motivation. And that was his way of motivating Chris. Chris was a good player, an excellent player, but that was his way of getting more out of Chris than Chris was ready to give. And I recognize that obviously some 15, 20 years later. And I like to pass those messages on to the younger people. I move on to football. What did I learn in football? Team bonding was really important in football. And our junior year, we had a coaching change from our junior year to our senior year. Our junior year, our head coach was Barry Smith. And Barry Smith was your quote-unquote typical football coach. Thump in the chest, very manly, very macho. But like everyone, Barry Smith had his flaws. And his flaws would unfortunately show up on game days. So what I mean by that is, during our games, we had a very talented team. So it kind of made things a little bit tougher for Coach Smith because he had lots of options. We had unbelievable running backs. We had wide receivers. Once again, Chris Pavlik was playing quarterback, excellent quarterback, really smart guy. And so whenever another play came into the game, the wide receivers would rotate to get the plays in and out of the game. So Matt Killeen, Greg Goodwin, Joe Tipping would usually be on a three-man rotation to go get the play from Coach Smith and bring it back out to Chris Pavlik so we could run the play. But the hang-up was that Coach Smith would get really frazzled on the sideline. And he would spend too much time trying to think of a play that he wanted to run because he had a lot of options. So we would be in the huddle and we'd look over at the sideline and we'd see, Coach Smith going, no, wait. And then finally, one of those guys would just run off as Coach Smith is still yelling at him as he's going to the field. So they get to the huddle, and one of them, and Chris would go, all right, what's the play? And he'd go, I don't know. He didn't give us a play. And so after a few times of that, Chris goes in the huddle during the game one day, all right, guys, this is what we're going to do. Anytime he doesn't call a play, we'll call it on the field. But he goes, I'm not going to do this unless we're all on the same page because I'm not taking the fall by myself. So it was our little bonding, our little pact that we'll stick up for you. Just call the play, we'll stick up for you. So long story short, Chris would call the play, we'd run the play, we'd all look to the sideline, and there's Coach Smith going, what the hell? What's going on over there? But we were successful. The next practice, I knew what was coming. We'd see Coach Smith pull Chris aside. Chris, what are you doing? I didn't call that play. What was that play that you called? And Chris would go, I don't know. He'd point to the wide receivers, blame it on them. But we all stayed on the same page, so no one really got in trouble because Coach Smith never knew who to blame. So we really bonded over those football moments. Fast forward to the next season. I think JL got smart on what we were doing, so he now hired all these really smart coaches. We had George Licht, we had Harry Rose, we had Dan Bennett, Harvard, Cornell, BC. And we quickly realized, this isn't going to work this year, guys. I guess we're going to have to listen. But the best thing about listening to those guys was Coach Rose was always entertaining, very smooth talker, for those who know Coach Rose, who's just up here. So I remember our first practice. We were getting ready. He was in the locker room. He came in the locker room, and he looks at us, and he goes, all right, guys, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to work on this, work on that. And he goes, but, it's like a quagmire out there. And we all looked at each other. Does anybody know what the hell a quagmire is? And we all just sat in total amazement. What's this guy talking about? Here we are, these 16, 17-year-old kids wondering what the hell a quagmire is from this new coach. And we're like, is this what we're going to be in for? He's just going to say these words that we don't understand? And so we also had, like I said, Coach Licht and Coach Bennett. Coach Bennett was always the silent guy. Never said much. It was mostly Coach Licht and Coach Rose until one day that I guess he couldn't take it anymore. And it was during a game, it might have been the Medfield Thanksgiving game, where he decided, you know what, all right, I'm going to motivate these guys today. So after Coach Rose gave his, really long speech with a lot of words we'd understand, Coach Bennett decided to change the mood a little bit and go back to the old school football macho man mentality. He started out slow, and as he got more into it, his speech got louder and louder and more aggressive, to the point where he stopped talking and just turned around and started slamming his head into the locker. He turns back around, and there's blood dribbling down his forehead. And once again, here we are going, is this part 2 of our football experience? We went from one guy that we didn't understand to now another guy who slammed his head into the locker. But that was my football experience. So like I said, what I learned from there, motivation, our team bonding, which was incredible for a football team. And I really appreciate all the lessons, both in English, that Coach Rose taught us. Track. I had Coach Releva for my track team, for my track coach, as well as for homeroom. Coach Releva and I spent a lot of time together. And what I learned a lot from Coach Releva, was the fact that you didn't have to be afraid to take a chance, and it just may pay off. And how I learned that was, throughout my track career, as I got better and better and more competitive, we went to a lot of more high-profile meets and things like that. And specifically, the 1990 state championship meet, and I think it was in Gardner, Mass. And Coach Releva and I had worked for years now. We're going on 4 years working on, just the triple jump. Every morning I would come in a homeroom, because I had Coach Releva for homeroom. He would show me his latest thing that he researched and found a new way to make me a better triple jumper. Okay, let's do it. We'll do it outside today. And it worked, but fast forward to that state meet, there were two other very, very good jumpers that year. And my first jump, I set a personal record. Their first jumps, they kicked my butt. And I'm thinking, oh boy, this isn't going to end well for me today. And Coach Releva and I had been working on something, a longer approach. But I personally thought, this isn't going to work. I'm going to be too tired by the time I get to the runway, because this is way too long for me to be running. So he convinced me. He's like, Kurt, we got to try it. We got to try it. Now, here we are. Everything's on the line. This was my third jump in the state championship. This is it. And he decided, I think he might be a poker player on the side. He decided that we're going to try this longer attempt now. That's it. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. So what we had been working on leading up to the meet was extending the runway, or my approach, by an additional 15 feet. I said, all right, here we go. If I foul, that's it. It's over. So we did just that, and that's how I won the state championship. So I always think back at that you can't be afraid to just step outside the box and take a chance, because it just may pay off like it did for me. Once again, thank you for your time. Thanks again to the Hall of Fame committee, Coach Releva, for nominating me. It's an absolute honor to be up here and speak in front of such a great crowd. Thank you.
Okay, before we get to the final induction, a couple of things, because once that is over, people will stop listening. So, first of all, the centerpieces have in them mason jars with flowers. The inductees, if there is a single inductee at a table, is the lucky winner of that mason jar, though he or she may designate that mason jar to a person of his or her choice. If there is or if there are multiple inductees at a table, the tie-breaking method is the mason jar, and again, not the centerpiece. We like the centerpieces, we use them again, but the mason jar goes to the oldest person at the table. So that is number one. Okay? Clear? Good. 2, nominations. The way this works is the collective memory of Dover-Sherborn thinks, we identify people, we nominate. When the committee gets nominations, then we select. We do not nominate. So we need you. We need you to go to class reunions. We need you to get, or whatever, however you get in touch, to use what I believe is called something like social media. I do not know much about it. I hear it is good. However we can kind of beat the ground to get those names is very important. From this moment, or from this year on, inductions will be held every other year. So we'll be looking at a 2-year, the next one will be done in 2022. This will give us time to get more nominations and to make the decisions even harder. Yes? Well, how convenient is that? It's almost as if they had it planned. Nomination forms are back there. Also, on the back of your program is information. You can go to the website. That is fine. Next, of course, at the end, we would love you to join as many as would like to go to the famous Dover Legion, where the celebration can continue. We will post pictures from the evening. We have people taking pictures. We will eventually post them on the website, so that is good. So again, the website address is on the back of the program. And finally, at the end, we would ask all inductees to come up here to get a group picture. So that is it for that. Okay. Thank you, first of all. I know it's been a long evening, but a very worthwhile evening as well. We come to our final inductee. You have already heard him praised. Those who know him quite well as JL. His role in this school, well, he has influenced many directly and indirectly. And so we will recognize Jim J.L. Lorenzen, longtime physical education teacher and athletic director, who will be introduced by Chris DeBose, a member of the Dover-Sherborn Hall of Fame. Chris, come on up.
Thank you, Casey. I'm very happy to introduce Jim Lemon. Jim began his career as AD at Dover-Sherborn in 1974, and I had the good fortune of being hired by him 9 months later. Jim seemed like a seasoned AD when I joined the school in 1975, just as the school and the athletic teams put on a growth spurt. And immediately I learned the value of an attentive and responsible AD. If a bus didn't arrive, if an official didn't show up, if an issue arose between a parent and me, Jim stepped in quickly, squaring things away with no hesitation. Though we are just 5 or 6 years apart in age, he seems much wiser. He seemed much wiser and more experienced than me, and indeed he was. Jim demanded that the players that represented our school be respectful as they competed against their Tri-Valley opponents. All the coaches under his watch adopted a great deal of his even temperament. His coaches learned, if they didn't already know, that they were serving as mentors to their players, showing them how to handle victory with humility and defeat with dignity. When a player or coach did not show class, Jim quietly let them know. And that was his way, quietly. Jim loved to smile and chuckle, you know him. He also loved to see his teams play well. I can hear him proudly recounting a team's accomplishments or making note of a player's execution at the end of a game. And when it was time to change a situation, Jim never raised his voice. In his suggestions, I could hear Jim's kindness and his care, but I could also hear his certainty that coaching and playing were privileges that were not guaranteed. As the school has matured since its inception in 1964, the athletic program has matured with it, claiming, I think by present count, 17 state titles in an impressive variety of sports. And though Jim's name is not directly associated with the success of those teams, think about the coaches he hired to fill those varsity positions, in some cases the programs that were in their infancy. Ralph Howard, Fred Sears, Steve Ryan, Don Cannon, Tom Powers, Joe Brusick, Brian McLaughlin, and the elder stateswoman of them all, Sarah Johnson. I had the honor of coaching alongside all these great coaches, challenging myself to try to live up to their legacy day after day, season after season. And that brotherhood and sisterhood was the result of Jim's acute sense of what makes for a great coach. I can't honor Jim without acknowledging the secretaries and assistants who worked with him, because for all of Jim's career as an AD, he was also teaching phys ed, oftentimes out on the athletic field. So when a coach went down to the AD's office during the day, it was generally the secretary who dealt with the matter. These assistants began with Barbara Armstrong, followed by Anita Clark, Kathy Martin, and Jim's last assistant needs no introduction because she still serves in that capacity, taking care of 10 or 15 matters each day, giving athletes as well as coaches a place to be heard. Another of the great all-time contributors to Dover-Sherborn Athletics, Susan Funk. Dover-Sherborn Athletics arose in the 1970s from the sporting spirit of three administrators: Dick Wakely, this gym is the Richard Wakely Gymnasium; Tom Albrough, honored several times by this body; and Jim Lerman. Today, Jim joins his peers in the Dover-Sherborn Hall of Fame, Athletic Hall of Fame. I know that I became a better coach and a more reasonable person because I had the opportunity to be guided by Jim. On behalf of the Hall of Fame committee, I present James Lorenzen, longtime athletic director for the Dover-Sherborn Hall of Fame.
Even before I start, excuse me, the words that you have heard from particularly the student athletes is what it's all about. All four of them were my students, and I am so honored to be inducted tonight along with them because they are what Dover-Sherborn Athletics was all about. First of all, I'd like to thank Chris for his kind words. I'd like to congratulate Vicki, Paige, Kurt, and Judd, and the 1970 Dover-Sherborn football team and the coaching staff. My thanks to the Hall of Fame committee for selecting me, and I would also like to thank the Dover-Sherborn Boosters for sponsoring this event tonight. I want to give special thanks to my wife, Chris, and my family for their love and their support. George Licht called me just before Christmas to tell me about the fact that I would be selected and inducted to the Dover-Sherborn Athletic Hall of Fame. Obviously, it made for a fantastic Christmas present. Since then, I've obviously been very excited about tonight, but also very nervous to the fact that I have to stand up here and speak. People who know me know that being in this gymnasium, I'd rather be teaching a physical education class or administrating a basketball game rather than standing up here speaking. In thinking about what I would say tonight, my thoughts went to what makes and what made a successful athletic program. And I think you've heard other people mention tonight, people. Obviously, it was the commitment of the student athlete. It was the support of the community, as demonstrated by the Dover-Sherborn Boosters. It was the administration, in my case, who I worked with. Names that you've heard before: Jack Usher, Superintendent Bob Couture, Headmaster Dick Wakely, Assistant Headmaster Tom Albrough. And we talk about the people. And who are these people? I've mentioned a few. Beyond the student athlete, the support of the community, the other people who really helped me out, the supportive staff, the building and grounds personnel, Barbara Bosang in the training room, and I call them partners in the athletic office. Krista Bowes mentioned them, exemplified by Sue Conley. Then, who pulls all this together? It's the coach. What made me successful as an athletic director are the coaches that I had the privilege to work with. Some have already been inducted to the Hall of Fame, and I know there are many more to come. My success as an AD is because the coaches cared as much about wins and losses, but more importantly, about the intrinsic values that can be gained through participation in athletics. And I can be brief, but in closing, I happened to recently read a column in the Boston Globe written by Dan Shaughnessy, and I would like to read that. The everlasting gift of high school sports is not always quantified in touchdowns, home runs, goals scored, or baskets made. Ultimately, it is the relationships you build and the memories that you make. Small amounts last a lifetime. And 50 years after something happens, you find yourself getting all choked up again. How true. Again, I thank you.
Well, I will ask. Oh, first of all, the inductees, those big posters are yours. I hope you figured out a nice place to put them. We will help you to get them down. The hooks are ours. Please don't take them. I would ask the other inductees to come up so we can take a picture of all of them. I think we have the football team covered. You can stay back. Otherwise, thank you for coming. It was a wonderful night here at Dover-Sherborn, a meeting of present and past to mark some special people who have gone through these halls, many more to come. Enjoy your evening. Thanks for coming. Nominate, and perhaps we will see you at the Legion. Good night.